He answered every text immediately. He never argued. He always made himself available. He listened to every problem, gave emotional support, reassured her constantly, and somehow she became colder every week. At first, he thought he needed to try harder, be more understanding, more patient, more nice. But the harder he chased connection, the faster attraction disappeared. And this is one of the most misunderstood dynamics in modern relationships, because most men were taught something dangerously incomplete. If you treat her well, she'll naturally become more attracted to you. But attraction doesn't work like a reward system. Human psychology is far more complicated than that. In fact, sometimes the behaviors that make you seem like the safest man emotionally also make you feel the least desirable romantically. So why does this happen? Why can being too nice quietly destroy attraction, even when your intentions are pure? And more importantly, how do you become a good man without becoming emotionally invisible? Most men watching this have experienced some version of this story. You meet a woman, things feel promising, you give effort, you communicate, you try to avoid mistakes other men make. But somewhere along the way, the energy changes. Her replies slow down. The excitement fades. She says things like, "You're such a sweet guy." And somehow those words feel less like admiration and more like a goodbye. In this video, we're going to unpack the psychology behind why excessive niceness can weaken attraction, and what emotionally grounded masculinity actually looks like instead. Not manipulation, not toxic games, not becoming cold or arrogant. We're talking about something deeper: self-respect, emotional tension, authenticity, and the difference between kindness versus approval seeking. Because once you understand this dynamic, your relationships change completely. You stop performing for love and start creating genuine connection instead. A man takes a woman out to dinner, he pays for everything, compliments her constantly, agrees with nearly every opinion she has. And internally, there's an unspoken expectation. If I do everything right, she'll choose me. Now, consciously, he may not even realize he's doing this, but psychologically, the interaction becomes transactional. This is where many men confuse kindness with covert contracts. A covert contract is when someone gives affection, support, or generosity with an invisible expectation attached to it. Not because they're evil, because they're afraid that being fully honest about their desires, boundaries, or standards might risk rejection. So instead, they overgive, over-accommodate, over-please. And women often sense this immediately, not logically, emotionally, because attraction responds strongly to emotional congruence, meaning, does your behavior match your internal reality? A man who says, "I'm happy either way," while secretly desperate for validation, creates tension in the wrong direction. His energy feels needy even when his words sound polite. Real kindness has no hidden invoice attached to it. A grounded man can be generous without trying to purchase emotional security. He gives because he chooses to, not because he's terrified of losing approval. So what's the practical shift? Start asking yourself one uncomfortable question. If there were zero chance of getting validation, attention, or love back, would I still behave this way? That question exposes everything. And once you stop treating connection like a negotiation, your presence becomes far more authentic. Which brings us to the next mistake. Imagine a man who slowly reshapes his entire personality around a relationship. He cancels hobbies to stay available, stops disagreeing, changes his opinions to avoid tension, even laughs less naturally because he's constantly monitoring her reactions. At first, it may look caring, but over time, something disappears: his center. Psychology calls this self-abandonment. And ironically, the more a man abandons himself trying to keep attraction alive, the less attractive he often becomes. Because attraction isn't only about comfort, it's also about emotional polarity. People are drawn toward individuals who seem rooted in themselves, someone with direction, standards, an identity independent of the relationship. When a man starts orbiting emotionally around a woman, she unconsciously begins carrying all the emotional gravity in the relationship. That creates pressure, and pressure kills chemistry. This is why many women say things like, "I just feel like something changed." What changed was his emotional posture. He stopped relating to her as an equal human being and started relating to her as the source of his worth. That shift is subtle, but devastating. Practical advice? Maintain parts of your life that belong to you, your mission. Your friendships, your routines, your opinions, your ability to say, "I disagree," not aggressively, not defensively, calmly. Because confidence isn't loud dominance, it's emotional stability under pressure. And when a man stays connected to himself, the relationship has room to breathe again. Point 3. Excessive niceness removes emotional tension. Here's something many people are afraid to admit. Predictability can feel emotionally safe, but not always emotionally stimulating. A man texts back instantly every time, never challenges anything, never surprises her, never creates uncertainty, never expresses bold desire honestly. Eventually, the relationship becomes emotionally flat, not toxic, just flat. Now, this is important. Healthy attraction is not built on anxiety, but it does require emotional movement, novelty, mystery, playfulness, tension, anticipation. Human beings are psychologically wired to value what feels emotionally alive. This is why confidence, spontaneity, and emotional independence often create attraction more effectively than constant reassurance, because attraction grows in space, not suffocation. A man who constantly seeks to secure the relationship every minute unintentionally removes all emotional oxygen from it. And ironically, the more he tries to lock in certainty, the more attraction fades. Pattern interrupt mid-video. Here's the twist nobody talks about. Many women do want kindness, deeply, but kindness without strength often feels emotionally unsafe in a different way. Why? Because if a man cannot hold boundaries, cannot tolerate disagreement, cannot lead himself emotionally, then his niceness starts feeling fragile, like it could collapse the moment things get difficult. That's why mature attraction isn't about choosing between nice guy and bad boy. It's about integrating warmth with strength. And most men were never taught how to do both at the same time. Point 4. Agreeableness is not the same as emotional intelligence. A woman says something unfair during an argument. The overly nice man immediately backs down. Not because he agrees, because he fears conflict. He tells himself he's being mature. But internally, resentment starts building quietly. Weeks later, he explodes emotionally over something small. This happens constantly. Avoiding conflict is not emotional intelligence. Managing conflict calmly is. Emotionally intelligent men don't suppress themselves to keep peace. They communicate honestly without becoming reactive. That distinction changes everything. Because attraction often depends on emotional honesty, not constant harmony. A woman trusts your strength more when she sees you can remain composed while still standing your ground. This doesn't mean becoming argumentative, it means becoming psychologically solid. You can say, "I understand your perspective, but I don't agree." Simple, calm, grounded, no performance. No apology for existing. And strangely enough, this creates more emotional safety than endless people-pleasing ever could. Because authenticity creates trust. Point 5. Desperation disguised as devotion pushes people away. One of the saddest relationship patterns is when a man confuses emotional dependency with love. He thinks, if I give enough, sacrifice enough, prove enough loyalty, she'll finally feel secure enough to love me deeply. But emotional dependency creates invisible pressure. The relationship stops feeling like a connection and starts feeling like emotional responsibility. Now, she doesn't just feel loved, she feels responsible for managing his emotional state. That's exhausting. Healthy love says, I deeply value you, but I still have a stable relationship with myself. Unhealthy attachment says, you are my emotional stability, and no relationship can carry that weight forever. This is why emotionally grounded men often appear more attractive long-term, not because they care less, but because their identity survives independently of the relationship. They bring energy into the relationship. They don't drain identity from it. Around this point, some men start asking, so what am I supposed to do? Stop being kind? No, that's the wrong conclusion completely. The goal is not to become colder. The goal is to become more honest. Kindness becomes powerful when it's rooted in strength instead of fear. A man who is genuinely kind because it reflects his values feels magnetic. A man who is nice because he fears rejection feels emotionally tense. And people respond to emotional energy far more than rehearsed behavior. Emotional climax. Here's the deeper truth. Many men learned very early in life that love had to be earned by being useful, easy, pleasant, needed. So they became experts at managing other people's emotions while quietly abandoning their own. And for years, they mistake self-erasure for love. But mature relationships don't thrive because one person performs perfectly. They thrive because two people can show up honestly, with boundaries, with self-respect, with emotional openness that doesn't collapse into dependency. The irony is, the man who stops chasing approval often becomes far more attractive. Not because he's playing games, because for the first time, he's relating from wholeness instead of fear. He can say no without guilt, express desire without desperation, care deeply without losing himself. And that changes the emotional atmosphere completely, because real attraction is not built through performance, it's built through emotional presence. If this resonated with you, there's a good chance you've spent years confusing being valued with being needed. And maybe this is the moment you start separating the two. So I want to ask you something. Have you ever realized too late that you were abandoning yourself in a relationship just to keep someone close? Write your experience in the comments, not to impress anyone, just to be honest. And in the next video, we're going to explore another powerful dynamic most men never notice until it's too late. Why emotional over-explaining quietly destroys attraction, and what confident communication sounds like instead. Until then, remember this. A healthy relationship should amplify who you are, not require you to disappear to keep it alive.